Hi everyone, I'm Lisa.
And I'm Nick.
And welcome to It Takes Two, a podcast where two people take two movies with the same plot or premise and watch and discuss them.
And in this anniversary episode of It Takes Two, we watched It Takes Two and The Parent Trap.
Yes. This is where our name comes from, because this is one of the many episodes that we had planned before we came up with a name for our podcast. But it's fitting to be especially confusing to everyone on the anniversary of our first episode. So, thank you for listening to us for 1 year so far.
And many more to come.
Hopefully.
Yes. Well, is there a reason we'd stop doing it?
No, not that I can think of right now.
Yeah. Alright, so, I don't know, where do we want to jump in? Where do you want to jump in?
Well, we'll give a general overview. So these are two movies about identical children meeting at a summer camp and then trying to get their parental figures together, like trying to set them up in a romantic situation. In one of these movies, The Parent Trap, so we're doing just to clarify, we're doing the 1998 Parent Trap starring Lindsay Lohan.
And Lindsay Lohan.
And Lindsay Lohan.
Yeah.
So not the 60s version. So in Parent Trap, they are actual twins who've been separated at birth, and the parents were previously in a relationship but haven't seen each other in 12 years or whatever. In It Takes Two, they're just strangers who happen to be identical, played by Mary-Kate and Ashley Olsen.
Yeah, it's just a glitch in the Matrix.
It's just a glitch in the Matrix, and it's setting up one of them. Her father is a widower, and the other one is an orphan, but is largely being raised by a woman in the orphanage who wants to adopt her but can't on her salary.
Kirstie Alley.
Yes.
And Steve Guttenberg.
Yes.
It's funny because it's in starring it just says Mary-Kate and Ashley Olsen.
Yeah, they're one person.
Yeah, I only got one paycheck. No, like I don't think maybe I'd watched It Takes Two before. Like I said to Lisa when we were discussing it, this was not a movie that would have appealed to me in 98. And
Well, It Takes Two was 95. It's the Mary-Kate and Ashley one.
Yeah.
So I hadn't seen that one before.
Okay, so we're the opposite.
But I'd seen The Parent Trap, the 98 film.
Yeah, not the 61 film.
No.
No.
Well, I think I have seen the 61 film.
But, okay.
But only because it was on TV at some point. And I probably had already seen the 98 one at that point.
Fair enough.
But I mean, I was 7 years old when The Parent Trap came out, the 98 version.
Yeah.
So I was a little bit more in the, and also a girl.
Yeah.
I was a little bit more in the target demographic for that than you were.
Yeah, because I think The Matrix came out in
99.
Yeah, 99, and that was like super in my jam. So I guess this movie would have gone under the radar for me in 98. There's a lot of questions that I'm going to ask you rhetorically.
Okay.
Both the audience and yourself, Lisa, in regards to It Takes Two, being that, yes, I can understand the concept of, a marriage where they've had two kids and they, how are they going to do it? One person lives in America, one lives in...
Parent Trap, not
Parent
It Takes
Trap,
Two.
yeah.
You said It Takes Two.
No, I'm getting to it. I can understand splitting the girls up and not telling them and stuff. Like, it's shitty parenting, but I can understand it.
It's a really weird scenario.
Yeah. But then, the mother, which I cannot remember the name of because they all had really normal names.
Her actual name or her... Are you talking Parent Trap, It Takes Two, and the mother's real name or the actress's name? Natasha Richardson playing Elizabeth James,
yeah,
I believe?
Yeah, so, I don't know where I was going, you just completely confused me now. She's a dress designer and she lives in England, and that's where one of the girls, I cannot remember, Annie, and it was Annie.
Yeah.
Annie is like super posh and Britishy, and then you get
super posh and Britishy.
Hayley, who's like rough and tumble, like because her Dennis Quaid owns a winery and they live in California on a winery, and he's all about horse riding and stuff.
And camping.
And outdoorsy.
The thing is, both parents are clearly quite wealthy.
Yes.
Yeah. They're both well off. But so neither of the kids are, so like obviously in It Takes Two you get it's a prince and a pauper story.
Yeah.
Essentially, that it's one of them is a rich kid and the other one's an orphanage who lives on, has a pretty relatively shitty life and is, in, run down clothes and whatever, playing ball on the streets.
Yeah. Just
whereas
typical and she's very New York when it comes.
She's very New York.
Yeah.
I don't know where the accents in It Takes Two are
no.
they're wonderful, and the kids keep forgetting they're supposed to put them on.
Yeah.
So they keep slipping out of them, and there's like scenes where they go for ages without the accents, and then they're like, "Oh shit, I'm supposed to have an accent," and put it back on.
The point I was trying to make is I can understand how they're so similar, being that they're actually supposed to be twins.
Yep.
But in It Takes Two, like, there's no explanation of how they're literally identical twins.
Yeah.
Except they're supposed to be completely unrelated.
Yeah.
There's...
And they did... It Takes Two wasn't pitched as a Mary-Kate and Ashley film. Because there was a lot of Mary-Kate and Ashley films around that time that was specifically written for them.
Yeah.
The original goal for this film was to have one actress playing both roles.
Yeah.
And then they ended up casting twins. But, it makes even less sense. If it's one actress playing both roles, how are they, 100% identical and yet not related? Yeah,
there's a lot of... I think the standout part, because before... I can't even remember the names. Oh, my God. I'm trying to remember 4 names of 2 people.
Are you talking about Alyssa and Amanda? No? Hallie and Annie? Mary-Kate and Ashley?
The New York Olsen.
Amanda.
Okay.
Mary-Kate. What's funny is I knew... Obviously, I absorbed enough Mary-Kate and Ashley stuff as a child that I knew which one was which as soon as we started watching them.
How?
Because in every piece of media they do, Mary-Kate is the tomboy who likes sports, and Ashley is the, girly one. So in this one, they have Mary-Kate playing Amanda, the New York orphan who's out playing ball with the boys, and they have Ashley playing the, little princess, pianist, rich girl in dresses and stuff. So literally, for the beginning of it, I couldn't remember their character names, but I was like, oh yeah, this one's Mary-Kate and that one's Ashley. But it's just in my brain somewhere that Mary-Kate is the tomboy one in all of their media.
What I want to cover is, before they go on the Camp Carolaway, which is the name of Ashley's character, because she's the rich one.
Yeah, so she's Alyssa Calloway.
They set up a adoption for her from the orphanage to a family called
the Butt Kisses.
The Butt Kisses. Now, I did Google it, and there is not a lot of laws regarding adoption of that kind of level. You just sort of have to pass criminal background checks.
Right.
You can be on welfare and adopt a child. So Kirstie Alley's whole thing about her not having enough money to adopt is a weird plot hole, because according to New York state law and adoption,
it's probably a single person thing. It's probably similar to what you experienced with mortgages.
Yeah.
That as a single person on a single income applying for mortgages, they're less likely to consider you. Okay. So her applying as a single person on a low income, they probably would be more likely to go, well, these people have 2 incomes and are a family unit and have other children.
They definitely have an income.
They certainly have an income.
Because the notes that I put down for that, literally this is the 3rd line. So the first line is Ruffle Tumble City Kid versus Rich Kid with Silver Spoon, right? The 3rd line is child murderers.
Because they collect children.
Because they collect children, yeah. And, you know, if you want to go through majority of the stories about orphans and foster care, yeah, it's not very, there's a history of abuse in a lot of cases.
Absolutely.
One of our favourite movies, Housebound.
Oh, yeah.
Is regarding that, you know, child's home and assault and, you know, gross stuff.
I mean, even another Kiwi film, Hundreds of Other People, touches on it.
Yeah. It's it's a really hard line, and it's one of the things that is always brought up with in countering people who are very stance on pro-life, because then people then interview them and say, well, how many children have you adopted? And they're like, none.
Yeah.
It's like, well, then why are you saying adoption is the option if a person is not in a state to bear their own child? And it's like, well, if you're there trying to get politicians to overthrow like literal laws, but you're not walking that walk, it's kind of, you know, put your money where your mouth is, folks. And
there does tend to be, and I don't, you know, I think to some extent we see this stereotyped in films and TV, but it is a real problem. For fostering, a lot of the time, you know, there is monetary incentives, like financial incentives for fostering. So there are always, when there's financial incentives, things like that, there's always going to be, and it's probably a minority, but there will be people
that abuse it,
who abuse it so that they can get the money.
Yeah, there's literally an episode of Futurama where Bender does it. Bender adopts like every single child in the orphanage, and he's doing the maths at it, and he's like, "This is actually costing me money," like, and then he's trying to sell. What was it? He gets arrested for abuse of children. Trying to sell children as livestock and then misinterpreting the weight of livestock. Because he's like, how much meat? Oh, hang on. And one of them picks up one of the kids and he's like, about 30 pounds. You know, classic Futurama. Classic horrible thing that would, if that was in real life, that would like, and not an animated comedy, it would be.
But that's, I mean, they are drawing attention to a real problem, but obviously over exaggerating it.
Yeah,
you know.
I don't want to jump too far forward. I will get back to this point in a moment. But yeah, just It Takes Two in general just had way more concerning unanswered questions than Parent Trap.
Right.
The title of Parent Trap is a bit misleading as well, because there is a movie that I remembered that was in my mind where the kids lock the parents in the basement.
Okay.
And I think it's got Jamie Lee Curtis in it, and it's going to drive me nuts. You talk while I Google.
Oh, okay.
Putting you on the spot there.
No, but I mean, the Parent Trap is, you know, they bring it up towards the end of them. They're tricking their parents into spending, you know, seeing each other again and actually. House
Arrest.
Okay, I don't know that one.
96.
Okay, similar era.
Yeah.
You want to compare it to Parent Trap?
No, because I literally tracked it. This is the my point that I'm trying to get across is in House Arrest they literally trap their parents.
Yeah. No, that's not what this is.
Yeah. It should be Parent Trick.
Yeah. But it's interesting because in both films, the original plan of switching places is not to do with getting their parents together. And then that becomes a plot later on that they go, oh, hang on, we can do this.
Yeah, it's a very like monkey's paw, careful what you wish for. It's the single party guy switching bodies with the dad with the family, and then the dad with the family going and living the single life. And it's the same with like Freaky Friday.
Another Lindsay Lohan film.
Yeah.
Just My Luck, another Lindsay Lohan film where she body swaps.
Yeah. There's a lot of body swapping going on.
Lindsay Lohan is in a lot of body swap movies.
There's some points in Parent Trap where they meet up at camp. the fencing scene was bananas to me.
Yeah.
Because...
There's like parkour fencing.
Years ago, when I was visiting friends of the family that had little kids, especially boys who were really into Star Wars, and they had those polycarbonate lightsabers. Kids fencing is not a sport that you'd see a small child being that proficient in, where they could do like forward flips off like banisters and stuff. It was very Mustafa Anakin versus Obi-Wan kind of level of like sword fighting technique.
And I get it that like they're trying to show off, or I would get it if they were trying to show off that the posh kid, which they kind of do in the end, that the posh British kid has learned fencing because that's the sport that the posh British kid is allowed to do.
Yeah.
But the fact that they're, the one that's painted as like the rough and tumble American kid who goes camping and stuff, that she's also an expert fencer, I was like, why would she be learning fencing?
Yeah.
It doesn't add up in my mind that would be a sport she would learn.
Also, why is this at one of their activities at camp? Like, that seems really like...
Yeah, it's a bit of a weird one.
Like, I went to several camps when I was a kid, and trust me, there was, like, archery on one day and, like, go-karting on another day, and, like, kayaking and stuff. But
yeah, that's the kind of adventure camp things that I did, but, like, we only did, like, 2-day things or 3-day things, but it would be archery and kayaking and stuff.
Yeah, because archery, unless you point an arrow into the crown of other people, like
Jesus,
that'd
be bad.
Yeah, I know, but I'm saying like that's the level of danger. Like even with a foil, which is the sword type that you use in fencing, even though they're blunted.
Well, they had little tips on the end of the ones they're using.
Yeah, that's standard in fencing.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that, like, that's pretty extreme to be having kids who apparently are, like...
Also, they had, like...
savant at friggin' sword fighting.
Yeah, they had full, like, fencing gear, but did they have to have those in, like, every possible size for all the kids?
That's a good point.
Because they don't...
Yeah, because they're custom built. Like, you have to, if you join fencing classes, you have to buy your own, and they're not cheap.
Yeah. But what got me about that whole scene is that, like, the teacher who, like, calls the two of them to do it knows both of them by name, so she knows who they both are. She's seen them both before. And then they have, like, the whole scene, and then they, like, realize, they take off their masks and realize that they're identical, and no one else reacts, and then it's only after they point it out, people go... oh my god, and it's like, how did it's literally the same
person. Because there's literally a joke where the older camp mother lady mistakens both of them because she's like has a conversation with one and then continues it on with the other, and the other one's like, what are you talking about? I don't understand. There's weirdness in both these movies, but like I think I've gotten too far deep in detail and like completely missed. Like they're supposed to be like fun, like blah blah blah. I tell you one thing from an effects point of view.
Yeah.
Like I don't know what the budget because it doesn't tell me.
Parent Trap.
Oh, okay. It is. Wow, it made a lot of money.
Yeah, Parent Trap budget was 15 million. Budget.
And a lot of it went into
doubling
Lindsay Lohan because holy crap, there are some of those scenes in it where there are like when you get lower budget stuff. I'm thinking Neil Breen-esque movies.
Oh my god! Here. Oh no!
Like the comping of putting an identical person into the same scene, and because when you're putting a animated plate, which is when you cut somebody out and stick them, you film somebody on a green screen or a blue screen and you cut them out and stick them in the same scene with them originally acting. Like, if you don't do it properly and you don't layer it up, I'm not an expert on I just watch Corridor Crew a lot. If you don't do the plate layering properly, the person you're adding into the scene is very 2D. And you can see that and it's interesting because I think the way they would have done it for this and some of the sequences would have had to have been getting an extra in who looked like Lindsay Lohan, filming her from the...
Finding her name, Erin Mackey. I just want to give a shout out to her because she was the acting double for Hallie and Annie.
Yeah.
Obviously uncredited, underappreciated. So I just thought I'd find her name while you were saying that.
Because there's a lot of sequences in there where they're like looking at each other and it looks really well done.
Yeah.
Like better than movies I've seen recently.
Yeah. And she was a good actress as well. Like that's her first film.
Is it?
Yeah, it said at the beginning introducing Lindsay Lohan. It's
Weird.
her first feature film.
Was she in anything before that?
She was in a short film, I think, and that's it. But literally, this is it. This is her feature film debut, and she is good. Like I mentioned the accents in It Takes Two, that the kids literally forgot that they're putting on accents. They put on shitty accents to begin with. So Mary Kate has got this real fake New York accent, and Ashley is doing a half British accent, which makes no sense because they are both American in this movie. And then they both keep slipping back to their normal accent and mixing it up. And when they switch with each other, they don't put on the fake accents. So it makes no sense. Whereas in Parent Trap, obviously one of them is Lindsay Lohan's normal accent and the other one is her doing a British accent. It sounds believably British.
Yeah.
But not only that, she has, when she's playing the British character putting on an American accent, she slips into the British every now and then.
Yeah.
And that's her intentionally slipping from her normal accent into this character's real accent. Which I thought was fantastic because, that's a level of, she's really thinking about, I am the British character now and I'm the British character putting on an American accent, and every now and then she will mess up. And there's obviously... some real thought that went into that. And
with the writing as well, because some of her lines are, as the American version, so she says something very British and then the other way around. And it's, it's far more attention to detail.
Yes, 100%.
Than It Takes Two.
It Takes Two is a fun film, but...
If you say so. Again, switching places is a trope, and regardless of you're using a CGI double or a comp double or using, were they America's sweethearts at the time?
Mary Kate and Ashley.
Because the only thing that I remember Mary Kate and Ashley in that I actually watched continuously was Full House, the original Full House,
right?
And obviously, being that they were twins, that they just played one character and they switched out depending on,
So
because they were babies, and most of the time that's what you do in Hollywood, and obviously there was an empire that started from them. Yeah,
I had a friend who had every Mary Kate and Ashley film on VHS, every single one. She had this one. There was one, some New York something. I don't know. I don't remember them all. There's a lot of them, but she had them all. But I actually watched a Drew Gooden video recently about Mary Kate and Ashley, and it was really interesting to watch because they had a fan club that they every month people would get stuff, but they would do giveaways that were come on a cruise with the Olsen twins, and these were 7-year-olds who would have to then go on a cruise with the winners of this competition and spend all this time with them and hang out and take photos and stuff, and they were very young children. So the whole Mary Kate and Ashley thing was really strange, and it's absolutely no surprise to me that as soon as they had their own kind of as soon as they could dictate what they wanted and what they could do, they just both stopped acting.
Yeah, because I'm just looking through it here, just over their history.
Yeah.
Man, I obviously don't want to look into it too closely now.
Yeah.
But holy crap, were they in movies over and going through their filmography, and it's just 87 to 95, they were in Full House, sharing a role, and then 92, 92, 93, 93, 94,
Yeah.
94, 94 to 97, 95, 95 to 2000, 97,
What's
97.
95 2000? Is that there's like a Mary Kate
You're
and Ashley
invited
series?
to
Oh no, is
Mary
that-
Kate and Ashley. Adventures of Mary Kate and Ashley was 94 to 97.
There was one that I watched when I was younger, but I don't remember what one it was. But it was like a TV series that was on Nickelodeon.
Yeah. Two of a Kind, 98 to 99.
Oh yeah, it might have been Two of a... Yeah, that would be the one I watched,
Yeah.
probably, Two of a Kind.
But it just keeps going.
Yeah. And you'll see it stops when they're around 18 or when they're teenagers, and it's obviously as soon as they had their own authority over what they did,
Yeah.
they both just went blanket no acting.
Yeah.
Now they're still somewhat in the public eye because they're still doing, they do fashion stuff and whatever, but
Yeah.
they very much, as soon as they had their own autonomy in terms of, their financial situation, I guess, they both just went, no acting.
Yeah. And now, obviously,
Their sister.
their sister, yeah.
Is a great actress.
Yeah. And very successful.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's just interesting because obviously, yeah, there was, it wasn't my kettle of fish.
Yeah.
So I really didn't follow them outside of Full House.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't really follow them. Like I said, I watched some of a series that was on Nickelodeon.
Yeah.
And that's about it. But I was, aware of the, powerhouse that was the Olsen twins because I did have a close friend who was, just...
Obsessed.
Super into them. And had, all the Mary Kate and Ashley DVD. And I would always be like, really, why are they in so many,
Because their parents are making bank.
Yeah.
Because were they... Like I said, I didn't want to go into it then, but off the top of your head, do you know if it was a very similar case to the
Williams sisters? Is that what you're thinking? No, what were you gonna say?
Macaulay Culkin?
Oh, I'm not sure.
Because I know for a fact, reading through some of his stuff and following his now career outside of
Yeah.
being in a very horrible childhood.
Yeah.
Because he sued his parents, eh?
I think so. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure.
Not shocking to me.
Because they basically stole all his money, if I remember correctly.
That sounds like a Britney Spears situation as well.
That could be an entire podcast.
Yeah. I mean, I think the Olsen twins, there was a possibility of them going down a Britney Spears route, and thankfully they haven't. But I think it's very obvious from the fact that as soon as they had a decision, they stopped acting. That acting wasn't what they wanted to do.
Yeah.
And I know, I've seen there was interviews with them when they were kids, and they just don't understand things. They didn't have a normal childhood by a long, and it would be, they'd be asked about their hobbies or something, and they're like, what do you mean this is what we do,
Yeah, that kind of abuse, that reminds me of do you know Young Hercules?
No of it.
Okay, so there was a boy whose father was a professional trainer, and he basically had no childhood and was eating nothing but protein powder and working out constantly, and he starred in a couple of movies. I can't remember the guy's name. But he had a moment like that when he was taken away from his father, and he was served pizza for the first time,
right,
and had no idea how to eat it because it was the first time he'd had I wouldn't say actual food because it's debatable if pizza's actual food. But
pizza is actual food.
Yeah.
Ask anyone in Italy.
But yeah, just the abuse that kids saw. It's a real shame. It's a real shame, and I'm not gonna get into it now because this really isn't the place. But yeah, there's people that can live vicariously through their children by making them want to succeed and be better than them, and that is a positive in some cases, especially when it comes to not professional sports, because we saw that in what was that basketball show we were watching for the movie crew?
Oh my god, One Tree Hill?
Yeah, One Tree Hill. Like, the dad trying to push the son to play basketballs because he wanted his son to, like, go, you know, professional where he missed out.
That's why I thought you were comparing the Olsen twins to the Williams sisters. Because they were born, like, they...
Yeah.
Before they were born, there was a plan for them to become the best in tennis. And I mean, I was just looking here, they were 9 months old, the Olsen twins, when they were cast in Full House. 9 months old is when they started acting. And then they had 47 direct-to-video films. Jesus. And they released 16 albums as kids. They had multiple fashion lines. And just, like, a shit ton of merchandise. Yeah, just, like, really strange. Yeah, just a really, really strange childhood.
Right.
It doesn't sound like they liked it at all.
Yeah, and on for the Britney Spears thing, Macaulay Culkin sued his parents for I can't pronounce that word. Emancipation, thank you. And $17 million in 97 when he was 16.
Right.
Because they'd just taken all his money.
Yeah.
It's sad. You know, there's a difference between wanting your children to succeed and pushing them and, you know, making sure that they get, you know, do things extra outside to boost them up.
Yeah.
You know, I remember when I was at primary school and one of my best friends in primary school was a kid named Jong Ho, and he was from South Korea, and he was doing, like, college level maths when we were in primary school. And, like, literally he tried, like, because I used to spend time with him after school every day.
Yeah.
Especially when my mum was working and she wasn't home.
Yeah.
So I'd get home and she wouldn't be there, so I'd end up going to Jong Ho's house, which was only like a block and a half away, or, you know, it was all pre-planned, whatever. He was doing, like, 5th form maths.
Yeah.
And he tried to explain it to me once, like, what he was doing, because he had to, like, literally he spent an hour doing maths when we got to his home.
Right.
So I was just, like, playing with his expensive toys and stuff.
Yeah.
And, like, literally one time I literally asked him, like, what are you doing? And he was explaining it to me, and my brain literally blue screened, because I was just not at that level yet.
But was he doing it because he wanted to do it, or were his parents pushing?
Parents pushing.
Right. Because I had the opposite when I was a kid. That, like, I had teachers say to my parents, you know, don't push her so much, and they're like, we don't.
Yeah.
We literally just let her be, and she is pushing herself. But that's, you know, me. That's like a perfectionism thing, which I've had to deal with in some way as an adult. You know, I've had to really focus on not, because when you have that level of perfectionism, you are very hard on yourself. And I think then with these kind of situations where that pressure is coming externally, you're going to be really hard on yourself, and also other people are going to be really hard on you.
It's also the fact that it's one of those running tropes that they now use in movies, but it's very true. Turning Red was a perfect example, is when people move to other countries, they try and be the best they can be because they're strangers in a strange land and need to succeed and need to stand up higher than everybody else just to be equal.
Yeah, and it's like you hear that about you know, minorities or even women who aren't minorities, that you know, you get told you need to work 4 times as hard to be seen to be doing the same level as, you know, generic white men.
Yeah. I think a lot of I knew New Zealand as a person who's voted for 2 female party leads. I think New Zealand's very progressive. You know, Kate Shepherd's on our money, who was standing up for women's rights back in the day when women didn't have that many rights. Yeah, she'd be the equivalent of Countess Markievicz maybe in Ireland for Irish people. But, you know, and I understand how, you know, I didn't grow up in a household or hopefully a time where, you know, women were seen as lesser. You know, I remember I think the first time I voted for Helen Clark. Well, not directly, but, you know, directly. Yeah, I remember I think it was
Mary McAleese, who was the second Irish female president.
Yeah.
Helping my mom's friend with campaign posters for her.
Yeah.
That's a memory that's in my brain somewhere from like 97 maybe, so I was maybe 6 years old.
Man, we have like completely rambled off track. We're not even talking about the movies anymore. Women's suffrage.
So you want to get back to the movies?
Yeah. No, just to tidy that up on a bio. It's really sad watching children be abused by their parents for monetary gain, and the movie kind of touches. Well, It Takes Two kind of touches on that so I'm going to jump forward a little bit in the movie here, where the plans come together and they're trying to get Steve Guttenberg and Christy Alley together. And then she basically gets kidnapped by social services because the adoption papers have gone through, and she gets whisked off to the butt kisser's house.
Yeah.
And they rename her to fit their naming scheme because they all have B's in their name, and she's like not the right Ashley sister. Yeah, she's the fancy, expensive one.
Yeah, they've accidentally taken the wrong Ashley sister.
Yeah, they're not the discount.
Wrong Ashley sister, wrong Olsen sister.
Wrong Olsen sister.
They've taken Ashley.
Yeah, they've taken Ashley.
Alyssa.
And yeah, and then she ends up like, in a scrapyard. And like seriously, the red flags that come up, like just instantly because you're seeing it from her point of view, like the down focused camera and stuff when she first meets them, and how physically aggressive they are. And it's like one of those things I think you talked about to me just offhandedly, or I think it was you.
What was it?
Giving children at a young age the idea of consent. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I think it was my mom was talking about my uncle and his kid. Yeah. And how they've kind of explained to him from a very young age, your body autonomy.
Your body is yours. If you want to hug someone, you can hug them. But if someone asks you, can they hug you, and you don't want to, you can say no. Yeah. And I mean, my parents were like that with me to an extent when I was a kid, but I think also I just was very much a no touchy, no huggy child, so they didn't really need to tell me because that was my default setting was please don't touch me.
Did your mummy get calls from the kindergarten because you're biting other children, Lisa? No. Were you a biter, Lisa?
No, I do think I scared my mum though one time when there was like a person, like social service person, checking up on Connor when he was very small. It was just like a routine, like how's he doing, whatever, and he was like this little plump pink baby, roundy chubby child, all happy and excited, and I was like pale as, like I was like translucent and super thin and covered in bruises, and when the lady tried to come near me I flinched away from her, and my mom was like, oh God,
I'm gonna go to jail now.
But it was entirely just I wasn't a touchy person, and I am very pale, and as a kid I was very skinny, not anymore, and I climbed shit and I bruised easy, so it was I was just a clumsy child. I used to scrape my knees all the time.
You see, I got asked, I was sick and went to a GP, and I was asked about bruises. Yeah. And I was just like, I don't know, I'm a kid. Like, like, what do you want,
it's funny, because as a child, like, I know, as a child who was brought up, in a healthy, happy household, I had no concept of that, so it didn't seem weird to me.
But, it must be a huge red flag for social workers.
Exactly.
There must be, when you do social work training, taken through, like... Yeah. How to approach a child you think's being abused.
Yeah, and you've got like the, in my family at that point we had the, two boys who were not so underweight as me, and
shots fired.
I'm being polite about it. They understand. They know. No, but I was like literally I had a primary school teacher approach my parents to ask them if I was anorexic at one point. I just was a very skinny child. My brothers were not. As adults, none of us are, so that's fine. And they were both extroverts and both quite happy around people and cuddly and whatever, and I was like, like Wednesday Addams.
You're a goblin.
Yeah. So I think, so I can understand a social worker looking at this and being like, oh, this is a family that hates girls. Which is not the case. I just was very skinny.
Yeah. Back to the movie again.
Yeah.
There's just no explanation for, one, how they look the same, two, if there was any follow-up for the butt kisses and the fact that they were literally breaking several laws.
It's implied, because she says, like, she's going to take... when Kirstie Alley shows up and finally finds out what they're doing...
Yeah.
Because she has bad feelings about them, but she's never been able to prove anything, so that's why, she didn't want the trial to go there. She says to them that she'll be calling social services on them or whatever. And then she flies off in a helicopter to stop a wedding.
Yeah.
So...
The love interest in It Takes Two was played by the same actor that played Carol in Friends, which I brought up to you when we were watching the movie, and then we could go into an entire spiel about how terrible Friends is, but yeah, just...
Oh, let's not do that.
Yeah. 2020, looking back at Friends, it's a bit... Oh no!
I just hate Ross. I just hate Ross.
But he's the largest of all the friends.
Why does he not eat the other friend? No, if you cut Ross out of the show, it'll be a better show. Just get rid of Ross. Bye, Ross. We don't need him. He's a terrible person. But it's not only that he's a terrible person, it's that he's a terrible person and the show wants you to, like, root for him. I don't root for him. Ross is the worst person in that show.
Yeah.
Whatever.
And then Chandler. And then Phoebe.
I don't know. I mean,
Chandler's a homophobe, and Phoebe was in prison and used to hit people with a lead pipe.
Stop talking about Friends.
Okay.
I'll
never stop.
We keep rambling on this episode.
Because there's not much. Like, the movies are pretty much the same. They're,
The movies are identical.
Yeah.
Not really, but they do, which you've just touched on, they both have, like, an evil fiance that's kind of sprung on the kids. So in It Takes Two, it's right near the beginning of the movie when Alyssa, who's the actual child of the dad of Steve Guttenberg's character, arrives back after being a concert pianist as a 9-year-old, which I don't understand, but okay, she's off doing piano concerts abroad without her father.
Yeah.
When she arrives back, there's this woman, and he's like introduced as a friend, and then you find out later on that they're engaged. And in Parent Trap, the same thing happens, but it's when Annie, who's pretending to be Hallie, goes to Hallie's home after they switch at the summer camp, and then she's introduced to this publicist, and he's again introduced as a friend, and then she finds out that they're engaged. But in that case, it's complicated because she's then like, this isn't even my family.
The thing that I found interesting about that is, when you touched on the fact that she's supposed to be his publicist.
Yeah.
She's a terrible publicist.
Yes. She's like turning down charity gigs and stuff on the phone because she's like...
So she's...
selfish and shitty.
That's a real gold-digging moment because one, she's literally like turning away clients for him, which would be, he seems like a good person. His character anyway.
Yeah, but because it's charity, there's no money in it for him, so she's like, bye, no thanks.
It's interesting because I guess it probably happens in real life, where you get, single men who are successful and then a woman who's, sniffing around for some dollars, then
and he starts
manipulating, their and grooming their lives from the inside, and then,
And he's got an 11-year-old kid.
Yeah.
And she's 26 years old.
Yeah.
Because,
because she does the maths on him.
She's like... she does it a bunch, which I think it's so funny, because, in both films, they get the switched twin to, try to get rid of evil stepmom, while the other one is off elsewhere. And it's... one of the ways she does it is she's like, when he says, that they're in a relationship where, she's like, but, oh no, it was, she knows, at this point, she knows that they're in a relationship, but he hasn't said it to her yet.
Yeah.
And she's just like, oh, what age are you? And she's like, oh, 26. She's like, oh, you're only 15 years older than me. And then later on, when the dad is like, we want to make her part of the family, she's like, I think that's fantastic. You're going to adopt her. I've always wanted a big sister. And he's like, no. And then and then he's like, no, I want to marry her. And he's like, but she's young enough to be my big sister. Why would you marry her? And it's, but it's very much like, it's very intentional from Annie's point of view that she's, she cops what's going on the whole time.
And it's true because, there's a running meme that I see quite a lot, and it's the, I'm going to go stay at a friend's house, use protection. Mum, I'm 15. Yeah, and I'm 30. And then you see the kid's glass break in their head, like, oh, shit.
Yeah. It's like, wait a second, how does that work?
Yeah.
But it's funny, because this reminded me of one of the bits of trivia that I took down, which was that he married, Dennis Quaid in real life, married his fourth wife when she was 26 years old. And Elaine Hendricks, who played his fiancée in The Parent Trap, tweeted at him saying, you better watch out for those twins. Which is funny.
It's, comparing the dads for a second, it's interesting because there's a lot more, I think, in A Parent Trap, the couples work better, they're more, despite the fact that they've got, like, butlers each, she is a butler and he is like a housekeeper who's like a nanny / housekeeper who end up getting together, which is a cute little
the butlers get together. I also like
help.
I like that in both films the help, as you just described them, know the kids better than the parents do. Because you have like Annie with her butler have like a secret handshake they do together, and Jessie is the maid / nanny, whatever she is, housekeeper. She's the one who cops on that that's not actually Hallie. And then in It Takes Two, you have the butler. What's his name? Lorenzo? Is that right? Or something like that.
Lurch.
Lurch. Yeah, she just call him Lurch at one point. He is the one who spends more time with Alyssa, and because her dad is like, he even says at one point, her dad's like, we never get to see each other. Let's spend some time together and get to know each other again because I don't know you. Which is good that he recognizes that.
But the point that I was getting at is the family in A Parent Trap are a lot more involved and a lot more parenty.
Yes.
Obviously, Kirstie Alley's character is just her caseworker, or whatever she works for, the orphanage that New York Olsen,
Amanda,
Mary
Kate.
I'm not going to remember it. I refuse at this point in the podcast. At this point in life, I refuse to know. Just their togetherness, like, obviously, sparks fly, love at first sight, blah, 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 fun little food fight, and then jumping in the lake and stuff like that. It's all fun and games, but, I don't know, just for me, I think the actual parents in A Parent Trap are a lot more parenty and then better people. Well,
I think Kirstie Alley's character is a good person.
Yeah, it's just...
But I also think that at the end of that movie, she gate crashes his wedding and he's like, I can't marry you, I'm in love with someone else. It's like, you met her yesterday.
Yeah.
How are you in love with her? Makes no sense. But, in Parent Trap, obviously there's history.
Yeah.
Because they were together for at least 9 months. They were married and divorced, I believe, because they talk about their wedding night and stuff, or the wine that they drank at their wedding.
Yeah.
We see snippets of it, that the day they met on the QE2 and the bits of their wedding. And
that's
stuff.
a huge ship, by the way.
Yeah, I know.
I saw it leave Wellington once, and it was like bigger than Soames Island, and I was just like...
Funnily enough, I had a friend who had been on the QE2 a couple of times when I was a kid, and it's the same friend who had all the Olsen Twin movies on VHS.
It's all related!
Speaking of it's all related, do you want to know something else?
No, never.
The IMDb trivia for both of these films is largely just like, this role also considered these people for it, or whatever. But the one that I thought was interesting was that the number one person they wanted to play the both roles in It Takes Two was Mara Wilson. But she was busy filming Matilda at the time.
Oh, okay.
Because they had seen her in Mrs. Doubtfire and Miracle on 34th Street, and they were like, we really want to get her. But what was funny then was that Mara Wilson auditioned to play the twins in The Parent Trap, and they turned her down because they didn't think she was old enough to play the parts. And yet 3 years earlier, another studio had wanted her to do the same thing. But it makes sense, I guess, that they're 9-year-olds, and she would have been even younger than that, I think, at that time.
Yeah.
And then, but they thought she was too young, and that's. But they also, there was a whole load of actresses who tried out for leads in both films. A whole lot of people considered for like the parents and for all the roles. So, but I just thought it was funny that Mara Wilson was like the number one person they wanted to get for one of them, and then she auditioned for the other and didn't get it.
I will say we've been all over the place with this episode.
Yeah, that's fine.
But that is part of the thing.
Mm-hmm.
These movies are so similar. You could dig into the details, but in reality, there's not much other than the things that I've brought up and you've brought up. That's pretty much the standout parts to me. Is just the weirdness in the movies rather than the actual movies themselves. Yeah,
I mean, there's a whole lot of stuff that's in both of them, like
both the dads getting cuts on their heads.
Yeah, I thought that, and both of them having first aid applied by they both get cuts on their head while paying more attention to the woman that they're not supposed to be getting married to.
Yeah,
and then they both have the first aid performed by that woman, and there's like there's just like a weird
also connections in both of them.
Horses in both of them. Yeah. There's both of them have like a deadline that there's like in one of them it's 2 weeks to the wedding, the other it's 1 month to the wedding, and they bring it up to like tomorrow, which is stupid. Because how especially when they're like all the amount of guests they have and the big church in New York, and she pulls the wedding forward by a month. It's like, let's have it tomorrow, and they have all these guests.
Just the both of them.
Yeah.
Both of them, the fiancés in both the movies are just terrible people, and that's part of the writing is to make the audience not like them.
Yeah.
But still, it's just
they're very much the like evil stepmom role before they even become
gold digging, like self-important.
The Meredith in Parent Trap, I feel like, is a more well-rounded character. We get to see a bit more of who she is and what she's interested in and stuff. But she's still obviously evil. They compare her to Cruella de Vil in it.
Yeah, they literally call her to her face.
Yeah. It's interesting that they're...
Because who is it in It Takes Two? Is the character's name? The only thing I can remember was Carol from...
Miss Kensington. They refer to her as Miss Kensington, but I've forgotten her first name. She
comes off as, like, literally evil.
Yeah, she's like a cartoon villain.
Yeah.
She's very, very cartoony.
It's just...
And both of them treat the staff like shit.
Yeah.
To the point that I think in Parent Trap she gets like a little bell to ring to call Jessie.
She literally does, yeah.
Even though like the rest of them treat Jessie as family.
Yeah.
And she's like, oh no, you don't talk, you ring the bell when she comes out. And then in It Takes Two, she's just really shitty to the butler and to all of the house staff. She's like, doesn't treat them as people.
Yeah, because she's got literally plans.
Yeah.
To get rid of the house, to like...
Get rid of the girl. They both have plans to get rid of the girl.
Yeah, that's true. They're going to send them away. Both movies, they're sending them away to boarding school forever.
Yeah.
It's just...
One of the last notes I took watching... Because we watched It Takes Two first and then Parent Trap. One of the last notes I took watching Parent Trap was just... people with kids shouldn't date or marry people who hate kids.
Yeah.
because that's not going to work out. If you are a single parent and you're looking for love, you're dating, you're looking at marrying someone, don't marry someone who clearly absolutely hates children.
Don't take any advice from us. We're not professionals.
That's
we have
true.
no qualifications to justify anything.
Including we have no children and no plans for it, so that's nothing, we can't tell you what to do. But it just seems like logic to me. If you were a single parent, why would you be
interested in dating someone who treats your kid like shit? Yeah.
Why would you be interested in marrying someone whose
also,
plans are as soon as you get married they're gonna send your kid off to boarding school?
Not to mention the fact that you're just like dumping it on them. Like, this is the thing. Like,
in both they don't let the kids get to know them very well.
Yeah, and it's also the fact that like the marriages are really quick.
Yeah.
Which is to me a massive red flag.
You say that, but you were like, when we started dating, like within a month, you were like, we should get married.
Yeah. I think it'd be funny to turn up to your brother's wedding and we'd be married before.
No, it's terrible. Definitely, it's very, very quick. Because in both of them, they've only known them for a couple of months or something, and then they're planning to marry them.
Yeah.
Very shortly. So I think both relationships are less than 6 months between instigation and marriage.
Here's the difference, just to defend myself before your mother contacts me, and also Floyd contacts me. Neither of us have kids, and also one of us is not a businessman or woman who's got millions and millions of dollars, and the other one's not way younger. You're younger than me, but you're not like...
I'm not like 26 years younger than you.
Yeah, and you're not trying to steal. I'm not trying to steal your money, and you're not trying to steal my money. So there is.
So at the time, I didn't have residency, so arguably I could have.
Yeah, we did make that joke that I was using you to get a home loan, and you were using me to get a visa. That was a joke that I made multiple times at you rather than to you. But yeah, no, there is a huge difference between, genuinely falling in love with somebody and wanting to spend the rest of your life with them versus someone you meet who's, young and fun and, you're wealthy, so you can, you don't have to worry about money and, they're probably, as young women do to older men, probably giving them, some treatment that they haven't had for a long time. Yeah, she says. That's, how you get into, that kind of space.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it happens all the time.
Yeah, but it's just the, not having climatized them to your daughter.
Yeah. Because
you imagine, hypothetically, right, in the situation where, they haven't met their identical twin, they don't switch places, they don't come up with this plan.
Yeah.
And it turns out, both sides, we're just taking, the one side out for now and just focusing on both the fathers, Quaid and Gutenberg.
Mm-hmm.
You imagine in this situation where there wasn't, hijinks happening to break up their marriages or another woman they can insert into, who's really the real love of their life. You have younger women marrying their fathers who are literally manipulating the rest of their lives and going to make sure that they're the only woman in your father's life by literally shipping you off.
Yeah.
That's fucking evil. Like,
I mean, I feel like I don't know how it would have worked in the It Takes Two, because that could be exactly how it went. But in Parent Trap, she eventually reveals to him that her plan is to send the kid off to boarding school. And
because she basically has like a Saturday morning cartoon evil villain monologue.
And then she says it's me or them, take your pick, and he's like,
I'm fucking my fucking daughter.
Yeah,
like,
he's just doesn't even hesitate. She's like, them.
Yeah,
this is easy. And I feel like that's still how it would have gone without all the hijinks.
Maybe.
I think if she had been like, waited till after they got married, like, oh, let's send her away, he'd be like, no.
I did like the part where they actually go camping and they just torture the shit out of her. That was great.
Yeah,
where
funny.
She's like tired, sits down, so she just puts rocks in her bag to make her bag
make it heavier.
And then like sticking a lizard on her was fantastic. And then like oh, what are we having? Well, we're having trout for dinner. What are we having for breakfast? And they all say trout. Like, that was funny. Like, that was like, fathers and daughters, even though one daughter's been separated for her entire life, they are I wouldn't say same person, but, they are very similar.
Yeah.
But I think we've rambled enough.
Yeah.
Any more trivia you want to split through?
There's not. I kind of went through most of the trivia I had. One of the things that I thought was fun was that the actress who played the wicked girlfriend in the 1960s version of Parent Trap, Joanna Barnes, the girlfriend in that, her name was Vicky.
Yeah.
So she's in this version of Parent Trap, and she plays Meredith's mother, who introduces herself as Vicky.
Oh,
so there's like almost a tie-in there that it's, maybe this is the same universe and she is the evil. This is how her life has gone afterwards. But I thought it's a cute little cameo that they have the person who played the evil fiance in that movie play the evil fiance's mother in this one. So I just thought that was kind of funny.
Do you want to go over the
Box office?
I was going to say critic score because that's more funny.
So we always we normally talk about the IMDb ratings for films.
Yeah.
On this, but we do also have record of the Rotten Tomatoes scores. And for Parent Trap, the critic score is 86%, and the audience score is 70%. And for It Takes Two, audience score is 60%, and the critic score is 8%.
That's not a typo, folks. That's a singular digit.
I looked at it and I was like, that can't be right. And then I went and double checked. I was like, oh no, apparently that is correct.
Because your spreadsheet was just like,
oh,
I must have mistyped it. It must be like 38 or 48.
It must be something to 8 or 80. Maybe it's 80%. But no, it was 8%. In terms of budget and box office, like I said, Parent Trap, the budget was $15 million. I could not find any record of what the budget was for It Takes Two. But like I said, they were in like 47 direct-to-video films. But then again, this one wasn't supposed to be a Mary-Kate and Ashley film, so it might have had a higher budget, but I have no idea what that budget was. I imagine lower than 15 million by a long shot.
The box office was 18 for It Takes Two.
Apparently total international box office was 19.5 million.
Oh, it's pretty close.
Yeah.
And the other one's 96?
92.
92.
Yeah,
I knew it had a 90 in it.
Little bit of a difference in the box office numbers there, but again, it probably was largely. I don't think It Takes Two. It might not have gotten a theatrical release. I'm not sure.
Straight to DVD.
VHS
then. Sorry.
So they did a lot of straight to VHS stuff.
Well, I would like to thank each and every single person who has listened to our podcast over the last 12 months, and I hope you continue on with us into the next year. Hopefully, we get more ad swaps with other podcasts, maybe some guest appearances on other people's podcasts. We're pretty happy not having people on our podcast because it kind of ruins the whole dynamic of It Takes Two.
We will say we have discussed it, and if any of you are listening, I'm going to name your names now. If any of these three people are listening, please get in contact.
These three.
These three people are our only guests: Elijah Wood, Nicolas Cage, Carl Urban.
Yeah.
If any of you are listening,
just tweet at us.
Just tweet at us. Just you can send us an email, whatever.
We can fly out to you. It's fine. Don't worry about it. We'll clear our schedules for you.
Alright, so you can find us on Twitter and Instagram at ittakes2_pod or Facebook at ittakes2pod, and our website is ittakes2.co.nz.
Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Goodbye.
Hello, this is Still Any Good, the podcast where we run the risk of ruining our childhoods by revisiting fondly remembered films.
Have you ever wondered if the movies you enjoyed as a child have passed the test of time? Are they disappointingly awful, or are they still any good?
We've looked at Superman,
Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure,
Big Trouble in Little China,
Basic Instinct,
Face Off,
Trading Places,
Police Academy 2,
Honey, I Shrunk the Kids,
Bugsy Malone,
Escape to Victory,
Look Who's Talking,
The Man with Two Brains,
Kindergarten Cop,
Short Circuit,
Home Alone,
Smokey and the Bandit,
Tango and Cash.
So are these films still any good? Join me, Robert Johnson, in my cozy living room,
and me, Christopher Webb, in my garage, and find out for yourselves.
It's a lovely garage.